So we have a bit of a problem. I recorded the initial part of this video when I had about 7 minutes of storage left on the card, which you could say is really not setting myself up for success. And in the video, the idea was, I just want to see how fast I can take this apart and diagnose the issue. And I kind of did that, but I also kind of did not. And then in the process of editing it, realized that this was a very poor example of an instructional on how to take apart an ME Super, diagnose issues, so on and so forth. I touch on a few things, but I feel like I gloss over a bunch. So basically, this was sent in by a customer and it didn't work. And it was sent in as like a parts camera to be used if needed, and then see if I can fix it. So the problem that it was having was multiple. It wasn't working. Just straight up, it wasn't working. But what I was able to do was separate the mirror box from the rest of the body and recognize that the linkage system here, which you can see, let me get the light on it. I moved all my tools around while I was cleaning, which is here, operates as a catch mechanism for the charging of the mirror box. So if I move this up, it should latch on here. Trying to make sure that this is in focus and well lit. It latches right there. And now if I push down on this, it releases this, right? So I press this forward, it clicks in place, push down on that, lifts that up, and releases this, which is sprung in tension by that. This here serves as the source of the issue for the infinite wind. The little rubber gasket typically sits under there. It erodes, causes us to gum up, and all that stuff. When that happens, this does not move properly, meaning that the mirror box, or that the mirror does not advance properly. The shutter continues to advance, but the mirror box itself does not charge, thus it's not able to discharge, thus the systems become unsynced or whatever. Another thing that you can do, as opposed to taking it apart, is clean out the screw point here and re-lubricate it, allowing this to move maybe a little more freely. Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't, but if you blast this with alcohol in here and then try to press in on this too much, you could cause this to become out of sync with this little couplet. So it basically sits like this, and there's another link there. So this is what's moving, and what happened with this was that it became disconnected. And when it's disconnected like this, it shoots up here, this gets stuck and doesn't move properly. And then the rubber gasket was also an issue. So I was able to get that cleaned up easy enough. I've seen it before. It's not too big of a deal. What I haven't seen before is this. Might be able to make out the shutter blades there, but they are properly messed up at the moment. Now, the course that I'm going to be taking here is removing the shutter and seeing if there's a way I can restack the blades so that way that it works again. But frankly, I don't know exactly what happened or how this occurred. I don't know if this was in the process of trying to fix it or what. But it is very messed up, which is unfortunate for me, and also I guess for the status of this video, because instead of like, oh look, I got it fixed, it's now, I don't know what happened here, but it is a mess. In a previous video, I had spoken about if your mirror is stuck up, it will probably look something like this, and you press down on these, it will cycle the mirror through. I stand by that, but sometimes people have done this as opposed to this. And if you don't know what you're doing, even if you do know what you're doing, you can still cause a lot more issues than solve them. So I have really shied away from telling people that as a potential solution, but it still remains as a way to get the mirror to drop and to cycle the system properly. So I guess what we will do from here to, fill this video with some kind of content that is worthwhile is I'm going to disconnect the cord here. This is the contact for your hot shoe. So if you have your flash speed set, then that will initiate that contact there. What I'm also going to do is remove the battery compartment because it will make it easier to remove the power winder contacts, and also it is necessary to remove the shutter. So we get that disconnected there. And I want to try to do this in a way that I don't rip these cords because they can be kind of a nightmare to deal with. Some people will tell you that you should solder them off. 9 times out of 10 I would agree. But unfortunately, I am kind of lazy and very good at not having to solder them off. So I usually just leave them connected. And then obviously that's going to tether the mirror box to the body a little bit more. But for the most part, you don't need too much distance in order to access this part here. This then frees up the rest of the body. So we'll take that. We don't want to lose any of these screws. In fact, I'm going to just be intelligent for once. Live on video, me making a good decision. I'm really glad the camera's rolling because let me tell you, this does not happen often. Going into the new year though, I have a lot of plans for this channel, for my business, so on and so forth. And in order to do that, I need to really level up my game here, not only on YouTube, but also on the repair side of things. Been slacking for too long. Really want to step up the game and, you know, fulfill whatever goals I have set up. Maybe I'll make a video about goals. Probably not though, because I have enough videos to keep me busy for the rest of the year. There are 2 screws that sit in the top there. There is 1 screw that sits in the back here, and that will loosen the shutter unit up somewhat. Sometimes this needs to be disconnected and might need to be pried a little bit. What I've also noticed is that this, which is the shutter charge indicator, removing that again makes it easier I should say, to remove the shutter unit itself. There is going to be some internal seals which could cause some issue for removing this. Kind of have to shimmy it out that way a little bit. That's exciting, haven't seen that before. The 2 power contacts that sit on the other side of the board have been fused together, so we're gonna separate that bond a little bit. It was a little bit depressing there, but that's okay. So this is pretty much what we have to work with here. As mentioned, this is properly messed up, and I'm not sure how it got to be that bad, but if I can surmise, I would say that the blades have been maybe warped. This is probably going to be broken for the time being. I will try to put that together at a later stage. Really what I wanted to do was finish up this video, give you a little bit more of a brief examination on how to remove the shutter itself from the camera. And then I need to go back through and clean the rest of my desk because this has created a bit of a mess. It's pretty straightforward as mentioned. The main things to remember when you're doing this is to not do it at all. It's not worth it, but if for whatever reason you still feel so inclined to do the repair yourself, taking it apart is fairly easy. Take the top off. I have many videos on that. Accessing this front board here is pivotal in order to unsolder those contacts. Another recommendation that I have is to remove the ASA dial here in order to access the purple contact that sits right there. Just soldering that off from here makes it easier. And then you separate from there. There's a power contact from the battery compartment that rests right there. Unsolder that, separate like so. Again, I like to leave the power contacts, the power winder contacts intact because unsoldering them you can do that, but 9 times out of 10 you don't really need too much more distance. And then from here, to access your rubber grommet that has eroded, you just remove that screw right there, and it sits under here. That, once you clean that up, this should move much more freely, as you can see here. And that will allow this to latch into place properly. So that's pretty much it. Pretty straightforward overall. ME Super repair stuff, if you are so interested. You want to remove the shutter, as mentioned, remove the tripod plate, remove the power battery compartment there, 2 screws right there, 1 in the back, remove the shutter charge indicator there, and you kind of have to weasel it out of here a little bit because it sits into this housing here, so it can't be pulled directly out. But that's pretty much it. In other news too, if we want to talk about the size of this and the tolerance, you can see here, this housing is for the traveling of the shutter blades itself. Obviously this is cut out of place, so that way they can move freely and not rub up against the body. But again, it's just another example of how small and compact this system is and how refined every element of it is. It's really fascinating if you think about it. It's really nerdy shit, but it is interesting nonetheless. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Sorry it wasn't like the most instructive or conclusive, but again, just a quick demonstration on how to remove the shutter if you want to do that. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and catch you on the next one.